The sun beat down mercilessly on the Pacific island of Tarawa, its rays glinting off the metallic surfaces of war machines poised for battle. The air crackled with tension, punctuated by the distant roar of artillery fire and the chaotic shouts of soldiers preparing for an assault. Amidst this cacophony, a question lingered. How could a simple weapon like the 50 caliber machine gun tear through the armor of a Japanese tank, ripping it open as effortlessly as a soda can? This moment encapsulated the paradox of warfare. Even the most advanced technology can falter against the unpredictable tides of combat. As American forces landed on that fateful day in November 1943, they faced not just the enemy's firepower, but the very essence of warfare itself. This episode isn't about the rifle or the tank. It's about the unseen forces, strategic thinking, technological superiority, and human tenacity that ultimately decide the outcome of wars. In the early years of World War II, the United States entered a conflict that was rapidly escalating across the globe. In the Pacific theater, the Japanese military had established a reputation for fierce resistance and innovative tactics. By 1943, the Allies had learned painful lessons from previous engagements, especially the protracted fighting on Guadalcanal. American military doctrine emphasized mobility and combined arms operations, which were intended to leverage air support, artillery, and infantry in tandem. The prevailing belief was that overwhelming firepower could negate the advantages of well-fortified enemy positions. Meanwhile, Japanese forces, confident in their entrenched positions, relied on their formidable defensive strategies and the psychological edge they believed they held over their adversaries. They thought that their well-armored tanks could withstand American firepower, while their infantry would exploit any weaknesses in U.S. tactics. As both sides prepared for conflict, they were unaware that the nature of warfare was shifting. On Tarawa, the U.S. Marines were equipped with various weapons, including the 50 caliber machine gun, which was relatively new in its role against armored vehicles. Doctrine at the time suggested that while this weapon had anti-aircraft capabilities, its effectiveness against tanks was not fully realized. Many believed that only heavier artillery could breach the formidable armor of Japanese tanks. The Marines were determined to take the island, viewing it as a stepping stone to more significant operations in the Pacific. As the battle loomed, both sides had expectations shaped by earlier engagements. The Japanese were confident that their defenses would repel the American assault, bolstered by their experiences from previous battles. Conversely, U.S. forces believed they could rely on their technological edge and superior firepower to secure a swift victory. This confidence, however, would soon be tested in ways neither side anticipated. The initial assault on Tarawa began on November 20, 1943, with an intense naval bombardment intended to soften defenses. This bombardment was part of a well-coordinated plan that sought to demonstrate American military might. However, the realities of war often clash with strategic plans. Intelligence reports had underestimated the fortifications on Tarawa, leading to a fierce confrontation that would challenge all preconceived notions of combat effectiveness. As the Marines landed on the beach, they faced not just enemy fire, but also the harsh elements of the environment, including shallow reefs that hindered their landing craft. The combination of tactical miscalculations and underestimations would soon reveal the brutal nature of warfare on Tarawa. The expectations of both sides began to crumble under the weight of combat. Japanese forces quickly realized that the American firepower was overwhelming. However, they remained determined to hold their ground. The U.S. Marines found themselves in a fight for survival, grappling with the realities of warfare that transcended mere tactics and technology. In this atmosphere of chaos, it became clear that the battle for Tarawa was not merely a struggle for territory, but a test of will and innovation. This conflict would expose the vulnerabilities of both sides, challenging their understanding of what was possible in modern warfare. As the battle unfolded, the lines between victory and defeat began to blur, setting the stage for a pivotal moment in the Pacific theater. The Japanese forces on Tarawa operated under a doctrine that emphasized defense and the belief that their fortified positions would deter the Americans. They underestimated the impact of American artillery and the effectiveness of combined arms operations. While they had equipped their tanks with thick armor, they did not account for the adaptability and resourcefulness of their opponents. The Japanese leadership had a blind spot regarding how U.S. forces had learned to overcome similar defensive positions in past battles. Conversely, American forces faced their own misjudgments. They assumed that their technological advancements, including the .50 caliber machine gun, would not be sufficient against heavily armored tanks. This belief was rooted in previous encounters and military manuals that emphasized the need for heavier weaponry to counter such threats. As American Marines landed, they were caught off guard by the ferocity of the Japanese defense and their own tactical shortcomings in the face of entrenched positions. The decisive factor that eluded Japanese commanders was the Americans' determination to innovate on the battlefield. U.S. forces quickly adapted their tactics, utilizing the .50 caliber machine gun in ways that had not been fully considered before. They discovered that with the right angles and conditions, this weapon could penetrate the armor of Japanese tanks, an outcome that would fundamentally alter the course of the battle. On the other hand, Japanese forces clung to their previous victories and failed to recognize the evolving nature of warfare. Their reliance on traditional tactics blinded them to the strategic shifts taking place on the battlefield. By underestimating American resolve and technological capabilities, they set the stage for a conflict that would prove catastrophic for their defensive strategy. The psychological shock among Japanese troops became evident as they witnessed their tanks falling to enemy fire, a reality they had not anticipated. The inability to adapt to the changing circumstances on the battlefield ultimately contributed to their downfall. This blind spot also revealed a significant cultural divide regarding expectations of battle, as each side clung to its respective beliefs. The combatants' underestimations fueled a tragic cycle of miscalculation. The Marines, when faced with the unexpected effectiveness of their .50 caliber guns against tanks, found themselves emboldened. Conversely, Japanese forces, shaken by the rapid loss of their armored vehicles, struggled to maintain morale and cohesion under fire. This psychological warfare highlighted the importance of adaptability in combat. In the chaos of battle, these errors became increasingly pronounced. The Japanese continued to rely on their traditional defensive strategies, while the Americans integrated lessons from the unfolding conflict into their tactics. The result was a stark contrast between the two forces, with one side evolving and the other clinging to outdated doctrines. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Japanese had severely miscalculated the effectiveness of their defenses. They had not anticipated the speed with which American forces could adapt and innovate. This blindness to the enemy's capabilities ultimately sealed their fate on Tarawa. The pivotal technology that turned the tide at Tarawa was the .50 caliber machine gun, a weapon that had been primarily used for anti-aircraft purposes. However, its potential against armored vehicles was only beginning to be realized. This machine gun was capable of firing up to 200 rounds per minute, delivering significant firepower in rapid succession. Coupled with its ability to penetrate armor at close range, it became a game-changer on the battlefield. The first technical pillar of the .50 caliber machine gun's effectiveness was its caliber size. The .50 caliber round was designed to deliver a substantial amount of kinetic energy upon impact. This unique characteristic allowed it to breach the armor of Japanese tanks, which had previously been considered impenetrable by smaller caliber weapons. The Marines found that when positioned properly, they could exploit the vulnerabilities in these tanks. The second pillar was the weapon's rate of fire. The ability to unleash a barrage of rounds quickly allowed Marines to suppress enemy positions effectively. In the heat of battle, suppressive fire was essential for maneuvering troops and maintaining momentum. The combination of high fire rate and substantial caliber made the .50 caliber machine gun a formidable asset in the hands of experienced gunners. The third technical pillar was the versatility of the weapon itself. The .50 caliber could be mounted on vehicles, tripods, or used as a standalone firearm. This adaptability allowed for various tactical applications, whether in stationary defenses or during assaults. Marines utilized these features to their advantage, positioning the weapon in strategic locations to maximize its impact against enemy armor. The effectiveness of the .50 caliber machine gun also stemmed from the training and experience of the Marines who wielded it. As they faced the realities of combat on Tarawa, they quickly learned to optimize its use against Japanese tanks. This learning curve was critical, as it transformed a weapon originally designed for one purpose into a vital tool for overcoming enemy defenses. However, Japanese forces lacked similar adaptations in their own arsenal. While they possessed formidable tanks, their reliance on traditional tactics and underestimation of US firepower left them vulnerable. The inability to match the adaptability of American forces and their weaponry ultimately led to significant losses on the battlefield. The turning point at Tarawa illustrated how technological superiority could translate into practical battlefield advantages. The Marines' innovation in utilizing the .50 caliber machine gun against tanks showcased a shift in combat dynamics. It was a reminder that success in warfare often hinges on the ability to adapt and evolve in response to enemy actions. In this context, the Japanese found themselves at a disadvantage. Their defenses, once thought impenetrable, crumbled under the relentless fire of American forces. The combination of American ingenuity and the effectiveness of the .50 caliber machine gun created a tactical environment that the Japanese were ill-prepared to counter. Ultimately, the battle for Tarawa demonstrated that the technology of warfare is only as effective as the strategies that employ it. As the .50 caliber machine gun proved to be more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of the evolving nature of combat and the necessity for innovation in the face of adversity. On the morning of November 20th, 1943, the U.S. Marines launched their assault on Tarawa, their landing craft cutting through the surf as the sun rose over the horizon. The sound of waves crashing against the shore mingled with the distant rumble of artillery fire. As the Marines disembarked, they were met with a hail of bullets from entrenched Japanese positions. The chaotic scene unfolded with a mixture of determination and fear as they fought for every inch of territory. As the battle progressed, the Marines began to deploy their .50 caliber machine guns. Positioned strategically along the beach, these weapons unleashed a torrent of fire against the Japanese tanks, which had been thought safe behind their armor. The sound of the machine guns echoed across the battlefield, creating a sense of urgency. Marines operated with precision, aiming to exploit the vulnerabilities of the enemy's tanks, revealing the potential of their weaponry in a way that was previously underestimated. The Japanese defenders, initially confident in their stronghold, soon found themselves in a precarious situation. The realization that their tanks were being destroyed at an alarming rate sent shockwaves through their ranks. The roar of the .50 caliber machine guns mixed with the anguished cries of soldiers, marking a turning point in the battle that neither side had anticipated. In the heat of the moment, the psychological impact on the Japanese defenders became apparent. As they watched their armored vehicles fall to the relentless American fire, their morale began to crack. The once unchallenged belief in their defensive capabilities began to falter, creating an opening for the U.S. Marines to advance. Meanwhile, the determination of American forces was palpable. With each tank that was incapacitated, they grew more resolute, pushing forward against the enemy. The combination of firepower and tenacity began to tilt the balance of the battle. The air was thick with tension as enemy fire rained down, but the resolve of the Marines remained unbroken. As the day wore on, the landscape of Tarawa transformed into a scene of devastation. The once proud Japanese defenses were being dismantled under the relentless assault of American firepower. In the midst of this, the .50 caliber machine gun emerged as a defining factor, turning the tide of battle and changing the course of the campaign. The loss of their armored support dealt a severe blow to the Japanese defenders. They could no longer rely on their tanks to hold their ground, and the realization that they were being outmatched by American ingenuity led to chaos. The psychological shock of defeat began to seep into their ranks, signaling a shift in the battle's momentum. As night fell on November 20th, the beaches of Tarawa bore witness to the brutal realities of warfare. The sounds of gunfire faded, replaced by the eerie silence of a battlefield that had undergone a profound transformation. The U.S. Marines had taken a critical step towards victory, demonstrating that adaptability and innovation could overcome even the most entrenched defenses. The arithmetic of victory on Tarawa can be illustrated through a series of compelling numbers that encapsulated the battle's intensity and its eventual outcome. The U.S. forces deployed approximately 35,000 troops during the operation, supported by around 500 ships and aircraft. This deployment was a testament to the scale of the assault, emphasizing the commitment of American resources to secure victory. In terms of firepower, American forces utilized over 1,000 artillery pieces during the battle, providing overwhelming support for ground troops. Each artillery shell delivered significant explosive force, contributing to the destruction of Japanese defenses. The sheer volume of fire allowed the Marines to maintain pressure on the enemy, minimizing their ability to regroup or mount effective counterattacks. The .50 caliber machine gun played a crucial role in the overall effectiveness of American firepower. With a firing rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, each gun could unleash a devastating barrage against enemy positions. This high rate of fire meant that Marines could effectively suppress enemy forces, allowing them to advance under cover and minimize casualties. Japanese losses were staggering. Estimates indicate that around 4,500 Japanese soldiers were killed or wounded during the battle, a significant number considering the size of their defensive force. This attrition reflected not only the effectiveness of American strategies, but also the failure of Japanese commanders to adapt to the evolving battlefield. The psychological impact of the battle was quantifiable as well. The realization that their defenses had been breached led to a rapid decline in morale among Japanese troops. Reports indicate that many soldiers surrendered or retreated in the face of overwhelming American firepower, a stark contrast to their earlier confidence. In terms of resource consumption, the battle highlighted the importance of logistics in warfare. American forces required vast amounts of supplies, with estimates suggesting that over 1 million gallons of fuel were consumed to support operations during the campaign. This logistical effort was crucial in maintaining momentum and ensuring that troops remained supplied throughout the conflict. The tactical innovations employed by the U.S. Marines during the battle also had long-term consequences. The effectiveness of the .50 caliber machine gun against armored vehicles prompted a re-evaluation of military doctrine, emphasizing the need for adaptable strategies in future engagements. This shift would resonate throughout the remainder of the Pacific campaign. Ultimately, the arithmetic of victory at Tarawa showcased how numbers are not just statistics, but reflections of human experience in the chaos of battle. The loss of life, the deployment of resources, and the psychological toll all played crucial roles in shaping the outcome. Each figure represents a piece of the larger puzzle of warfare, illustrating the complex interplay between technology, strategy, and human resolve. The Battle of Tarawa had lasting implications not just for the immediate conflict, but for the future of military doctrine and strategy. The U.S. victory marked a significant turning point in the Pacific theater, demonstrating that American forces could adapt and overcome even the most fortified positions. The lessons learned from this engagement would influence subsequent campaigns, reshaping the approach to warfare in the Pacific. One of the most significant changes was a re-evaluation of the effectiveness of various weapon systems. The success of the .50 caliber machine gun against Japanese armor prompted military leaders to prioritize similar anti-tank capabilities in future engagements. This shift in doctrine emphasized the importance of versatility in weaponry, recognizing that adaptability would be critical in overcoming enemy defenses. Additionally, the battle illustrated the need for enhanced training in combined arms operations. The Marines' ability to integrate infantry, artillery, and air support effectively became a model for future operations. Military planners recognized that successful outcomes depended on the seamless coordination of different branches of the armed forces, a lesson that would shape American military strategy for years to come. The psychological impact of the battle also resonated beyond Tarawa. The high number of Japanese casualties and the swift American victory shattered the myth of invincibility that surrounded Japanese forces. This realization would have profound effects on both Japanese morale and American resolve, influencing the conduct of the war in subsequent operations. In the years following the battle, the legacy of Tarawa continued to inform military strategies. The experiences of U.S. Marines highlighted the importance of innovation and adaptability in combat. These lessons would be integrated into training programs, ensuring that future generations of soldiers would be better equipped to face the complexities of modern warfare. Furthermore, the battle served as a reminder of the human cost of war. The staggering loss of life on both sides underscored the sacrifices made in pursuit of victory. This awareness would shape public perception and policy debates around military engagements, prompting discussions about the ethics of warfare and the responsibilities of combatants. As the war progressed, the victory at Tarawa became a symbol of American resolve and determination. It showcased the ability of U.S. forces to learn from adversity and adapt to the challenges of combat. This legacy of innovation would continue to inspire military leaders and strategists long after the conflict had ended. The impact of the battle extended into the post-war era, influencing military thinking and shaping the development of new technologies. The lessons learned at Tarawa would resonate across generations, serving as a testament to the evolving nature of warfare and the importance of adaptability in the face of uncertainty. The question posed at the outset, how could a simple machine gun rip through the armor of a tank, has transformed into a deeper understanding of warfare. It was not merely the firepower of the .50 caliber that claimed victory, but the innovative strategies and adaptability of American forces that ultimately led to success. It wasn't the best weapon that won, but the best system that integrated technology, strategy, and human resilience. As history continues to unfold, one must ask, what other unseen forces will shape the future of warfare?